Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And the slide that you see here on screen, I wanted to pull this up as we head into 2025 because this is very hard to do, right? This is not an easy task. And T-Mobile has been working at this for a very long time to match reality with perception, right? As an example, that was very hard for Sprint to do. Even though Sprint was investing in certain markets and they were deploying band 41 at the time, and it was getting right, the network was getting better. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a scaled network, but it was getting better in certain parts. But they could never get the perception to match the reality. It just wasn't happening. They tried it, but they weren't successful. Obviously weren't successful. So now T-Mobile is doing it. And now that they're even a stronger player with the Sprint assets, they're having more success. And the rest of this decade, they will continue to work on perception. So on the left slide, you can see strong improvement in network satisfaction among customers. So you see T-Mobile surpassed AT&T, and they're right behind Verizon. So T-Mobile's at 80%, AT&T's at 78%, and Verizon's at 82%. So fairly close. Like I said, a couple more years, it's not going to matter much anymore. They're all going to be right there, even in the coverage aspect of things. Right? T-Mobile is working on that. They're going to get U.S. Cellular. They're gonna gain coverage. It's not going to be perfect. No carrier is perfect, but it's going to be tit for tat. It's going to be very close. It's going to be, hey, you don't have coverage here, but you have coverage here, and I don't have coverage here. They're all going to be big. And then we have to wait out to see how this Starlink situation pans out. If that's a decent experience, then right, a lot of people are just not going to have any coverage gaps anymore. They're not, right? If they get into a no service area, Starlink kicks in. If they can still send text messages and at some point do calls and some data, they're going to be fine, right? There's going to be no issues. And then on the right, you see significant network perception changes with switchers. Since 2020, T-Mobile increased that by 44%. Verizon has a -8 and AT&T has a -14. So T-Mobile is gaining perception with switchers. And that's what they're good at. They're good at growing, right? That team is a seasoned team, the leadership team. They have tenure, they have experience. They know how to get this done. They know how to grow. If it's anything they know how to do, they know how to grow. And when you build a network, according to T-Mobile, that's second to none, right? The experience is going to be much different for a switcher than it was for that same switcher perhaps like 10 years ago, as an example. If they were with T-Mobile like in 2015, the network today is totally different. So that's what T-Mobile is aiming to do. They want to change the perception once and for all. They want to be able to match reality with the perception. Is it going to be exactly toe-to-toe? No. Because even in some cases, as they start to get the reality to match with the perception, they still don't have a perfect network. So there's still going to be some switchers that are going to switch, and they're going to have issues in this area. They're going to have issues in that area, right? And that's still the case with AT&T too. Right, there's still an area that I know of that's west of here that I can go to with both Verizon and AT&T, and they don't have service. But the only thing, there aren't a lot of people going there. So that's a positive, if you will. It's not a huge populated area, so it's more rural. So not a lot of travelers on Highway 213. So right, T-Mobile has service there. For those of you who saw those videos, they have service in the buildings, but AT&T and Verizon don't. But they could fix that too. If that was a huge problem for the companies, they could fix that. But they could easily fix that. As a matter of fact, Verizon just struck I think it was a $2 million contract with the military to build sites, so they could easily fix that. But for now, these are the numbers. Right, this is what we're presented with. T-Mobile is closing the perception gap rather quickly. We're now almost 5 years in. Next year, it's almost here, right? April 2025 will be the 5th year post-merger. And then we're going to head through the next round of guidance, right? Through 2027, 2028. T-Mobile will be an even bigger network by then. And that's what I'm saying. Each and every year, T-Mobile gets bigger in network size, and they also get better at perception, right? So they grow the network again to a certain scale. They build more sites. And then again, they're stuck having to match reality with perception. But they're getting better at it. And you can clearly see it in the numbers, but it's very hard to do. It's not easy to do, especially in those small markets where you never had service before, you never had retail, you never had brand perception. It's just very hard to do. But T-Mobile has found a playbook that works for them, right? The hometown grants, it's working. They are growing outsized growth even in those small market and rural areas. So the network has to be there, right? That is a number one thing. The network has to be there. If the network's not there, those people are going to churn. And again, to close out the video, I will reference the early T-Mobile days before John got there. Churn was horrible. They were the cheapest, by far the cheapest. They had unlimited. And the network just outright sucked. I tried my friend's phone like in, what was it, 2009, 2010. T-Mobile's network was horrid. It was bad. And what was the outcome? And even back then we had contracts. It was even more painful to switch. And people were leaving T-Mobile. Even at that time when contracts were around, you had to pay up front for all your devices, like $199 per device, per line. It was even worse switching back then, and people were leaving T-Mobile at high rates because the network was trash. It was horrible. You couldn't make calls. It was just bad. Churn was like well above 2% for T-Mobile. They were losing like 3, 4, 500,000 customers a quarter. Now it's totally different because the network is not that bad anymore. It's really just what it boils down to. It's really that simple. The network is not that bad as it was back then. It's just the case. And again, I will throw in, it's not perfect, but it's not anywhere close to as bad as it was back then. If it was that bad, I promise you, as many deals that are out there today, right? Verizon willing to pay off your phones and everything else, the churn would be astronomical for T-Mobile. It would be high because it's easier and less painful to switch today than it was even back then. T-Mobile's churn would be like closer to 2% if the network was really that bad today. And they're priced higher. T-Mobile's priced higher than they were back then. And they have a churn that's in second place. All right, first AT&T, second T-Mobile, third Verizon. I'm just pointing it out. The network is now better than it was back then, and you can see it in the percentages. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See y'all in the next one. Peace.